what's up, everybody? It's Nick Sarnicola here with my boy, Jason Beukema. We're going to get to him and his story in just a second. This is our first ever episode of Forged by Fire. So I'm jacked to be able to share with you guys a lot about everything that's gone on in my past, in my history, in my life, all the successes, all the failures, but more importantly, everyone that's going to sit in that seat and getting to know their successes, their failures, and what's going on in their life. Let me give you guys some context. Forged by Fire, I believe, is a little bit different than a lot of the other podcasts you're going to see out there. I think there's a lot of really good podcasts that are about success tips. And specifically, Forged by Fire is how you got your ass kicked and how you came out the other side to create success on the other side. So not just, hey, nothing's ever happened to me, it's all roses and daisies, I made it. I want to hear about the pain. I want to hear about the ugly parts. I want to make you cry in the seat if I can, and or we'll just laugh about it to get out the other end. So quick backstory for those who I've never met, and this is the first episode, so it makes sense. I'm originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So is he, ironically. And just a very blue-collar, middle-class upbringing, all four grandparents. They grew up in the same, they worked at the same factory. So I didn't have an entrepreneurial training model to follow. I found the direct sales industry when I was 18 while playing college baseball, followed it, became a millionaire at 25, bought the company, created a company that ended up doing $2 billion in sales. Challenge.com was our domain, to give you guys a reference point. And we had every success and failure you can think of. Our biggest year was $600 million in sales. We were bought, we were sold, we were publicly traded, we took it private, we tried to spin out a sub-entity to go public, we killed it off. We raised capital, we lost money, we opened up 19 countries, 3 million customers. I mean, every success and failure, every victory, defeat, every lawsuit, every breakup, everything you can think of happened, which is why the podcast is called Forged by Fire. So we're going to go to my first ever guest in the history of Forged by Fire. First of all, cheers to you. Absolutely. Salute. Thank you so much for being the first guest. Jason Beukema, citizen of the world.
Thank you for having me.
You'll see why in a second I say citizen of the world. By way of the same hometown, not even Grand Rapids, Michigan, but Wyoming, Michigan.
You got to get detailed, that's right.
44th Street and Byron Center, which is where we both grew up. Jason, tell us your quick backstory. Tell everyone your quick backstory. We're not going to get into the uglies yet. Tell us about your journey and kind of that 2 minute and less version.
Sure. So first off, Nick, thanks for starting this podcast, because I subscribe to a bunch and they're all about positivity and they don't focus on the negative, and that's really where you learn to grow. So we'll get into that later. But I'm originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan, as you mentioned, and my father was a teacher. My mother was a secretary. I always wanted more out of life. I always wanted to impact the world in a bigger way, and got a degree from Central Michigan University in entrepreneurship. I was the second class to graduate with that degree, and long story short, I got a job in corporate America working at a Fortune 100 company in Atlanta called Georgia Pacific. And I hated it. Everyone was getting fired from their jobs left and right. I always forget that part of your story. And it was miserable, but I was in a lot of debt from having a business in college, and I had to get a job. My goal was to never get a job for the rest of my life after I graduated college. I had these grand ambitions, but I got in a lot of debt, so I had to get a job. So during the day, I worked at a Fortune 100 company, and then at night, I sold timeshares for Radisson Vacation Villas and weekends. I had a mentor of mine who said, find something you love to do and find a way to get paid to do it. And if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So I was like, all right, well, I love to go on vacations. So I have to figure out a way to get paid to go on vacations. So I found a school in San Francisco called the International Tour Management Institute. Flew out there, took the course, came back, got fired from my job, and then I was in the travel industry. So all my friends were like, put a trip together and we'll go. And I was like, all right, well, I was doing bus tours at the time in Alaska, Canadian Rockies, historic America tours on the East Coast, national parks tours out west. And my friends were all like, put a trip together and we'll go. And I was like, okay. So I didn't want to put my friends on a bus. I'm like, well, cruises are cool, but they're all families and old people, and the music and the nightlife sucks, and it still does to this day. But I had this dream and vision looking over the pool deck. I was on a Christmas cruise with my family, and I was just bored. Everyone was sleeping by 9:30 p.m. It was just ridiculous. And I just remember looking over the ship, and I was like, man, what would it be like if I had all my friends and really good music? And that was the idea. And so I put a group of friends together, go on a cruise. I had 125 people that went on the cruise from a 375 person email list that I had. Called it the Groove Cruise. It was 7 days, and people's lives were changed. And I only had 125 people on it. Since that time, my goal was to double it every year. So from my direct selling background in college, I learned about team building and dream building and multiplication and things like that. So I was going to do 125, 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000, which is the smallest cruise ship. And so long story short, I had no money, I had no resources. I didn't know anybody in the cruise industry. I didn't know anybody in the music industry. And it took me 7 years to charter my first cruise ship. And since then, we've done 44 music cruises now. We were Carnival and Norwegian Cruise Lines Charter Partner of the Year. And over 50,000 people have been on my cruises.
Biggest cruise, first of all, biggest cruise that you've done. How many bodies?
We just had it in January. It was almost 3,000 people.
And it wasn't 3,000 grandmas.
Mm-mm.
No, okay.
Nope, not at all.
3,000 children under the age of 4.
No children.
No children. Well, tell me some of the artists that you've had over the last decade that you've worked with that have come along on the ride.
Sure. So Groove Cruise in particular is what is kind of my baby. I started that 18 years ago in 2004, and on Groove Cruise is all electronic dance music. So we booked like Deadmau5. On the last one we had John Summit, Ferry Corsten, Marcus Schultz, Claude Monstroke. We've had Nervo, Benny Benassi, Dimitri Vegas, like Mike, like all the big hitters in those in the electronic, like house, techno, trance, and a little bit of bass music. So that's Groove Cruise, and then I've done rock cruises. I did a heavy metal cruise with Motorhead, Slayer, Anthrax, and Megadeth. I did a rock cruise.
Which you actually told me that they were the nicest. Out of all the artists you were working with, the nicest one were the death metal guys.
Yeah, I call them the meanest looking, nicest people you'll ever meet. They look like you're just gonna like cause trouble, but they're the nicest people.
But do you think it was like a curve?
Community.
Do you think it was like a curve, but now they're like over 50, that now they're nice, and like they used to be like they used to kick ass.
Maybe.
Now they're just like I've got 20-year-old children now.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Highest moments. So give me like 3 of the highest moments of the success of Groove Cruise and Whet Travel, which is your parent company. Like the highs of the highs, the trophies of the trophies, the I'm fucking killing it parts.
So the first moment, I told my parents that when I charter a cruise ship that they have to come. And it took me, like I said, 7 years. It was in 2011, and I'll never forget that moment when my parents came on Groove Cruise for the first time.
Like, oh shit, this is exciting.
Well, there was that, but also this is the first cruise I've ever chartered before.
Yeah.
There's a whole story behind how I even got to do that, because again, I didn't have any money and so forth like that. And here's a cruise line saying, here's 2,000 people, fill it. Like, okay, sure. And that was a big moment, just the correlation of my parents raising me, and then here was what I did. I chartered a freaking cruise ship. So that was pretty spectacular. Booking Above and Beyond was one of my things, because I've loved them since I was like forever. And Cascade too. So those were 2 highlights for me. Just pinch me, because they I've always loved their music and everything. And then probably the most emotional moment for sure was just this last cruise in general, because it was, and there should be maybe a whole section on this part of the cruise that happened. So I don't want to dig too much into it, but it's been a fucking nightmare. Like the last 2 years have been an absolute nightmare in the cruise industry and travel industry, and that was like the most emotional thing I've been through.
How many weddings underneath your tutelage? How many people got met and got married and
They do call Groove Cruise like the love boat. I'd say we have about 2 to 3 weddings a cruise and about 5 to 6 proposals.
And you and I are
And then there's several people that meet on there, and
of course.
then who knows what happens, or they have a baby 9 months later, or whatever. So I don't know.
More babies than weddings have happened.
Probably.
And you and I have a similarity there because obviously my background having large events. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of relationships, if not thousands, dozens and dozens of marriages that came out of it.
For sure.
Hundreds of babies.
No question.
It's kind of like this really interesting byproduct of bringing people together of the same community and culture. So, all right. So, some of your highs, renting out the full cruise ship, and then having your parents there. He referenced earlier that his mom, as a secretary, he didn't mention his mom was a secretary in the school system, and I know his mom because she used to be the secretary in front of the principal's office at my school.
And you were in the principal's office a lot.
Correct.
Right.
So Jason and I went to different schools because there was one street, Byron Center. You went on this side, you went to one school, this side you went to the other. But his mom worked in our school system, and so I got to see her a lot.
And my dad was my teacher in high school.
Which could be strange. So mom and dad coming to cruise, 2,000 plus folks. You also were partner of the year. I don't know if that was multiple times. Tell me about that.
So Carnival and then Norwegian Cruise Line gave us the charter partner of the year. So basically there's not many of us in the United States, maybe 6, that do what I do, the way that we do it anyway. And so they gave us the charter partner of the year, and that was a huge accomplishment for sure. Very grateful for that.
Followed your dream, followed your passion, and this is for people that are connecting dots here that want to be entrepreneurs. Hey, I found the thing that I love the most. How do I make a business out of it?
Yeah.
Figured out how to make a business out of it. And then all of a sudden, people that are heroes, if you will, from an artistic perspective, you're booking, they're on your ship doing your shows, which is pretty freaking badass.
Yeah.
And really, at that point, you're unstoppable, except for one thing.
Yeah.
COVID.
COVID will stop you.
COVID will fuck your life up royally, not because you had to get sent home from work, or not because you were sick or someone you know was sick, not because of restrictions of leaving the house, but your whole business is decimated because your business is renting out cruise ships. So this becomes your forged by fire moment, or death by fire.
For sure.
Forged by fire or death by fire moment.
Yeah.
Walk us through 2 years ago.
So, remember it clear as day. We had just had Groove Cruise in Miami with Above and Beyond, and about a month later, a friend of mine was telling me about this COVID thing in China, and I was like, whatever. It's not like, and he told me like a month ahead of time, and he's like, you need to prepare all this stuff, and I'm like, what do I do? So anyway, it happens. They shut down the cruise industry. Obviously, was the first industry to get shut down, and they were locking people out. They were the epicenter of COVID. Like, it was all over the news. Like, you couldn't turn the news on and not see a cruise ship. Could not have been a worse industry to be in at that time.
Yeah.
And that was all before they even shut down stuff in the U.S. This was all happening in Asia, where they're shutting all this stuff down, and people are, dying on cruise ships or whatever it was. And then it came to the U.S. and everything got shut down. So. Our booking stopped coming in, our money stopped coming in, people weren't calling, and my team kind of knew what was going on.
People wanted refunds?
Not yet, but that came, absolutely. So I think everybody's just in shock for a while. So that didn't quite come in right away, but...
was your first response fear, or was your first response an underestimation of, this will pass super quick?
It was definitely an underestimation until I didn't understand the scope of it. I was like, it's gonna go a week or 2 weeks or whatever. So I didn't quite understand the scope of it until I was on a webinar with this guy named Vern Harnish, who started Entrepreneurs Organization. So I've been involved in Entrepreneurs Organization for 10 years, and was on the board, created the mentorship program in EO South Florida. And he did a webinar, I think about a weekend, and he said, you gotta fire everybody that you can. You need to cut everything. You need to stop spending money. Cash is king. You don't know if this is going to last for 2 more weeks, 2 more months, or 2 more years.
Which is where we're at right now.
And I was literally like,
This week is 2 more years.
I was like, fuck. And I literally had a one Zoom call, and I get teary-eyed thinking about this, basically laid off pretty much everybody in the entire company on one Zoom call. And then after that...
What's that conversation?
Just nobody did anything. It's just, it is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, what did you have to, like, what did you have to say to them?
Basically, like, you know, here's the situation. The cruise industry is done, like, right now. So we don't, and you know that there's no revenue coming in. The phone's not ringing anymore. So there's no money coming in. People aren't making their payments, their monthly payments. And so, you know, just do it. Just pull the Band-Aid off, and just, it is what it is. And I basically said, look, it's, nobody did anything. It's just a business thing that I have to make to keep us potentially in business if we can ride this thing out. And it was the freaking most difficult conversation I probably ever had. And yeah.
I love that emotionally, that's where you go first, right? Because some people emotionally might go, Forged by Fire is working already.
Damn,
my goal is to I want to go to the hard shit.
Wait, I
want people crying.
Wait till we get to the last cruise I was on. I cried the whole time.
Like the fact that you go there first emotionally, it sets you apart from so many other entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you didn't get emotional about your baby first. I'm sure you did, but when in the storyline that you're telling me, right? It was your people,
for sure,
right? And you know, I've been in scenarios where we've had to furlough or lay off dozens, upwards of 100 people.
Yeah.
And to the point where it just became numbing. It's just numb.
Right.
How do you do it? You know, so I love the fact that you're so emotionally connected to your people that as you tell the story, that's the first thing that tugs at you. So
for sure.
It says everything about you. It says everything about you.
Thank you.
So you have to have a real shitty conversation with a lot of people.
Yep.
And what's next?
I mean, the team came together and they were just like, you know, we understand whatever we need to do to keep the doors open and just keep this dream alive. We'll do it. So I had a few people that stayed on, working like 10 hours a week. And in the end, what happened a couple of months later is they were able to collect unemployment and all that. So it actually kind of worked out very well in the end. And then I was able to bring them back, you know, working more and more hours as the year progressed. And we got closer to January 21. We had to cancel our fall cruise, and then we had January 21. And then that ended up pushing it to January 22 because of all this stuff. So,
let's go there. So let's go to operationally. So I am super clear on the people side of the difficulty. Navigate us through some of the really hard operational shit you had to do. Contracts, legal, you know, you said refunds potentially.
Yeah.
Like, let's walk through. Was it lawsuit? I mean, I have no idea.
It was a nightmare beyond even what you could imagine. I mean, it was just like, because we had
I can imagine a lot.
Yeah, you of all people, you can, for sure. For sure. But yeah, just refunds, chargebacks, just cancellations.
You guys losing merchant accounts, you losing
contracts. So one good thing that happened with the merchant account, and I think this was overarching with what we did with all my debtors that I had at the time and cruise lines and pretty much any partner that I had a conversation with them. And I said, look, I don't even really need to explain the situation that we're in with the merchant account because we're getting chargebacks coming in and refunds and shit. So they're freaking out.
Yeah.
But they can't cancel us because if they do that, they'll put us out of business. We won't be able to continue running cars to pay them back. So it's kind of like a catch-22.
Got it.
So I'm like, hey, we're going to announce.
So they'd have to write off everything if the.
Yeah, basically. So they would be in way more trouble if they didn't work with us.
Theoretically, if you're upside down 10K to them in chargebacks, they shut you down, they write that whole deal off instead of getting the 10K back.
Well, plus all those chargebacks would keep coming in, and I believe they would go to that merchant account company or that bank that underwrote us.
Absolutely.
So they were at risk of millions of dollars if they cut us off. Or if we went out of business.
Understood.
So they could literally flip the switch tomorrow and put us out of business. And I did have that happen before with a previous merchant account that we were with before. They called us up and said, we're going to shut down your merchant account. You've outgrown our risk profile. And I was with them for like 10 years. It's called Elevon. And yeah, they're just like, we're going to cut you off in 2 months. And I'm like, what? I have no chargebacks. I have great credit. Everything's perfect, but we're going to cut you off. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I had to figure that out. And that was difficult. That was really difficult.
Banks are a bitch like that.
They are.
Like
they'll cut you off tomorrow and they can put you out of business like that.
I have a bank, this is personal, and all my business accounts were all through one bank for a decade. And they found out that I had investments in publicly traded cannabis companies out of Canada. And they just fucking shut down everything. Like, hey, you got 60 days, get the fuck out of here.
Wow.
Because I had investments in publicly traded, like, it's an $8 billion market cap company. We're not talking about like Bob's weed store, you know, it's like, and they just like, we don't care, you're out of here.
Yeah, banks are brutal. They can be very, very brutal. Yeah, dealt with that for sure.
But you didn't lose the merchant account because of the leverage that
we had leverage for sure. But yeah, that was just navigating that, but just telling them in advance. I think companies, when you surprise them, or just any relationship in general, when you surprise someone, they don't like that. But if you say, hey, in advance, like, this is coming, I have a cruise cancellation coming and there's $1 million that could be charged back. I don't see that happening, but because we're offering them X, Y, Z, and here's what we're doing, here's what might happen. And that way they know when it happens next week or 2 weeks later, this might happen. So they don't freak out. But if you don't say that and all of a sudden they see all these chargebacks come in, they're going to shut your account down immediately. And then they're going to be, hold reserve and like all that, which is a whole other thing.
It's actually a really interesting teaching point. If bad news is there and you know it, you got two choices. Try to hide it and hope your parents don't find out, the bank, the merchant account, the insurance provider. Or go call your parents and be a fucking man and tell them what you need to tell them. And hope for the best. And that's what you did.
And ask them for advice too. I really appreciated that because I said, hey, here's what's going to happen. Like, do you have any advice? Here's what we're going to offer. Because they have other companies like ours or other companies in the travel industry. So I'm like, is there other ways that we could make this better, or could we tighten our terms going forward? So forth like that, so we can limit chargebacks, so we can win more chargebacks.
Do you need a pool boy?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So how do we navigate this the best? Because
lowest moments before the turn. You may have already referenced it, but and I'm going to go deeper than that. Lowest moment, not when you're sitting there looking at your staff on the Zoom, but it's just you.
Lowest moment.
Hardest moment.
Yeah, for me personally, it was probably back to that moment, and I went for a walk, and luckily I was in LA and I was with my nieces who were 3 and 6 at the time, and if you're ever depressed or down, just go hang out with kids. And that they helped me through a lot.
Was this before the Zoom or after?
Before the Zoom and after the Zoom, actually.
I would imagine after is probably harder because now it's executed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So then after, it was kind of numbing, but it was kind of just like, all right, what do we do? So I'm like, all right, I'm fucked, but there's a lot of people that are more fucked in their life than me, a lot. And I've just thought about like, how can I be grateful for this moment? And sorry to be crying. And then like, what were the, where's the opportunity? So in enormous crisis comes enormous opportunity. So I'm always thinking like, all right, shit, this is terrible, but like, where's the opportunity? Where's the opportunity? Where's the opportunity? So that was kind of what I was thinking about through the whole thing. So the opportunity was to use my foundation. So I have a 501c3 for 10 years to raise money for people that are having hardships due to COVID. So we started doing online streaming, which we've never done before. We just figured it out. So we started using Twitch and we started doing online streaming, and we did what we're called
immediate pivot.
I mean, it happened pretty quick. We utilized everybody in our team, our visual team, our artists, and we did these virtual sail-aways. So they're basically like 3 days, like a Groove Cruise online. There were 3 days, 72 hours, nonstop music, crazy, live from Amsterdam, live singer from Australia, and live this, and it was all live. It was not recorded at all. And it was difficult. And we had to test their speeds and test all their stuff, and the technical stuff was very, very difficult. But long story short, we did it, and we raised $50,000 over the couple times that we did it. And then what we did is we had people go to our foundation site and apply for grants. So every dollar that came in, we paid out as many grants as we could for people that applied based on their situations. And there were some dire situations.
And you had built such a phenomenal culture with your community that they were just logging in, partying from their own living room,
right.
In costumes.
Oh, for sure, in costumes, yes.
But what was the funniest shit you saw that you can share? You can share anything. The craziest, weirdest, funniest shit you saw on the Zooms.
So we do this thing called on the Groove Cruise with my old trainer called Crusher Camp.
I know Crusher. Shout out Crusher.
So I brought him on the cruise one time to do this boot camp called Crusher Camp, and it turned into this 80s thing, and everybody's wearing 80s costumes. So we did a Crusher Camp, an online Crusher Camp, and everybody was wearing like 80s costumes and it was 80s music, and it was just a shit show.
Doing workouts.
Doing workouts. It's so much fun.
Did Crusher have tight gold pants on? No shirt?
Probably.
For sure, no wig?
Yeah, wig for sure.
For sure. All right, so let's turn the corner. So all hell breaks loose. You pivot. You go to gratitude. You raise money for philanthropic reasons as opposed to for your own business. And then there's a flicker. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe some mandates change or this or that, and you're like, fuck it, it's time. Like, it's time to light up the boat.
Yeah.
Crank it up.
Yeah, so I think one thing that myself and my team came up with through this is what I call the state of the oceans. So especially in the cruise industry, there's so much disinformation out there, and we're in the disinformation age right now, for sure. Like, it's just so much bullshit, there's so much noise, there's so much misinformation with the media, it's out of control. So I started doing these once a month live streams where people can like have access to me, ask questions, and I'd give an update of here's what's going on in the cruise industry. And I think that helped a lot to just keep people comfortable and just know what's going on with refunds or what's going on with this, or is this cruise still sailing or not, or is this still sailing or not, or is there vaccines, is there mandates, is there masks, like all these questions that people have that they don't read our emails, of course, and social posts, but like just to give like a breakdown.
Guilty.
A breakdown of like what's going on, and I think that was a great thing, was just to like communicate with our people. Yeah. Face to face and do a live stream and give people updates. So that was something that came out of that I'm going to continue doing pretty much forever.
Nice.
I just started doing that before this cruise too, because there was so much
another huge positive that came out of something very negative, right?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, state of the oceans.
State of the oceans, and you picked a date. Well, how long ago did you? I know you guys just got back from a cruise 40 days ago, maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
How long prior to that largest ever Groove Cruise?
Yep.
How long prior did you start promoting into that?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
So you were pre-selling, like we don't know the date.
Pre-selling.
Okay. And how long before the date that you sailed did you know what the date was? Was it a 5 month, 6 month, 7 month? Meaning, obviously the rules are changing all the time.
Yeah, it was a year out. So we moved it from 2021 to 2022. So some of my competitors moved it from January 21 to April 21 and May 21, and the ships never started sailing till July or August.
Yeah.
So thank God I just moved it a year, because there was still so much uncertainty and the ships weren't in the water yet. So thankful I moved it a year. But yeah, there was just a ton of uncertainty.
What was the gap of no revenue generation?
So luckily our clients, most of them pay on automated monthly payments.
Yep.
So we halted those for a little while, and then we continued and picked them up and so forth. Then we worked with people if they were in dire situations or whatever. Sure. So luckily we had
a slow trickle of
in January 2020, we put the 2021 cruise on sale right after the previous cruise. So we had that cruise sold, I don't know, maybe 75, 80% or 90%, whatever it was, for the next year. So those people were actually making payments all through COVID. So I had money coming in. And then again, we were working with people. And then when it got to 2021, we postponed that to 2022. Then they maybe didn't have payments for a year if they were already paid up or whatever it was, or we gave them some money back and kept the payments coming in. We came up with some pretty creative ways that made sense for pretty much everybody.
And one of the key things you said is you worked with your customer. You weren't like, just, hey, this is who we are, this is how business is run. Like you got flexible with your customer.
Yeah. So we had rules, like we came up with like, here's option A, option B, option C.
Yep.
But if there was some situation like humans first and captains first, that's one of our values, is we treat everybody as the captain or the most important person in the world. So we're very captain driven, if you will, and listening to our customers and treating them like human people, not as just a number like other travel airlines.
What was the date of the cruise just came out?
It's January 20 to 24.
Okay. January 20th, you walk onto the largest attended group cruise ever in your history. Yeah. What does that fucking feel like?
It was just very emotional because there were several reasons, but like it was just 2 years in the making. It was so freaking difficult leading up to it. The cruise line is taking rooms for COVID. Omicron was at its fucking peak over Christmas, New Year's time. We're sailed 3 weeks later. Everybody got that shit. Everybody. So, the news was a nightmare to deal with because all the cruise lines were in the news because of COVID outbreaks.
Yeah.
97 ships were under investigation by the CDC, which was a bullshit statistic because you need 0.03% of the ship to have COVID to be under investigation by the CDC. So that means on a ship of 4,000 people, if
12.
Yeah. 12 people have COVID.
Is that what it is?
Or have COVID within whatever it was.
I think it's 12.
Yeah, within, exactly. So within a week after as well. So that's counted in the 12. So if you have 12, you're under investigation by the CDC. So it was like 97 of 100 ships that are sailing were all under investigation. So this is all in the news. COVID outbreaks on ships. But when you went to the facts, it was the chance of getting COVID on a ship was I forgot what it was. My stats are all gone, but it was 0.19% or whatever it was, versus the lowest state in the United States at the time was 9.8%, which is Alaska. The highest state at the time was 38%, which was Georgia. So you're trying to tell me that cruises are unsafe when you have a 0.19% chance to get on a ship versus 9.8% in Alaska versus this. So like the facts were so distorted against the cruise industry. No one died from COVID on a cruise ship during that period, in the very beginning maybe, but like it was just like a mass like just hammer on the cruise industry. And it was super frustrating because it was all bullshit. So I don't think the group cruisers cared as much unless they had pre-existing conditions, which is rightfully so.
Of course.
But it was more like their parents or their grandparents that are watching the news all day. They're just being filled with all this propaganda bullshit about the cruise industry, which just, it's true that these are under investigation, but why? It's because it's 0.03%. Like, that's ridiculous. So, just dealing with all that. And then just like vaccines were a challenge. 2 weeks before the cruise, they came out with a mask mandate where everyone had to wear masks. So we had it in emails in October, November that nobody had to wear masks because we were fully vaccinated and we weren't doing religious and medical exemptions and like all this stuff. So that came out, and then Royal Caribbean stopped taking all bookings in January. So if you weren't booked, you couldn't book any other ships in January at all through the whole month. They halted bookings. And then Royal Caribbean laid up 4 ships in January as well. Thank God ours didn't get laid up, but they laid up 4 ships in January due to COVID and their staff or whatever it was. So and then there were not direct competitors, but other music cruises before us and after us that canceled.
So you're the last man standing.
Yeah, I was kind of like the last one standing. I'm like, I don't give a shit because this isn't like group cruise is not like something that people want to do anymore. It's more of like a need. I was like, people need this shit. Like, I'm losing money. I don't care. Like, I want to do this because this is life changing and people need this shit right now. There's never a moment in time where group cruise was more like needed than this time. So I'm like, until they freaking give me that
drag my ass out of here.
Yeah, it's like drag my ass out of here. Like I am not canceling this shit. I don't care. Like
don't maybe walk the plank.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in.
So what did it feel like when you're on that boat in front of those 3,000?
I remember like addressing the crowd like during Jefferson Stories' set on the pool deck as we were sailing away, and I was just like grateful for everyone that just came, and they had the group GC fam is what we call them, but they had to go through a mess to get on there, like get the vaccine, and then also the testing is very stressful. With my team, y'all have to get tested like 2 days before the cruise, and you have to test negative. So I'm like, shit, if I test positive, like, I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. If anybody in my team tests positive, like, yeah. So everybody else had to be tested, and we had people that tested positive. We had about 15-20% of my production staff that tested positive, and that created an enormous nightmare.
Oh wow.
Because we were super short staffed with like sound and lighting and staging and production and all this shit. Stuff setting up late, and we're missing stuff, and like just stuff that would normally be very simple.
Yep.
But we just didn't have the staff. And
you can't backfill like 24 hours.
Yeah, and you can't backfill it like that. So I'm just like pushing speakers myself and like trying to just get shit done. And the Groove Cruise fam just kind of stuck with me the whole time for 2 years, most of them. And that was really like the emotional part. It was just like them sticking with me, keeping their money with me.
Yeah.
When we announced that we were offering like refunds and stuff like that, I said, here's the deal. Please keep it with us because we need the money and, you know, to stay afloat and blah, blah, blah. And if you keep it with us, you're going to get onboard credit. You're going to get these benefits. And I'd say like 90% of the people kept their money with us, which was awesome. Like absurd. It was just like absurd. So all of our people still believing in us, still believing that the cruise industry is going to come back, still believing that we're going to stay in business, and all that just meant the world, and that they actually made it on the ship, and we're finally freaking here after jumping through hoops after hoops after hoops after hoops. Yeah, it was very emotional, and yeah, it was great.
So looking back and all of the lessons in this, and you've got people, it could be related to COVID for them. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Everyone, whether they're a sales professional, entrepreneur, a parent, whatever, is going to face what to them is a significant fire.
Yeah.
Right? And they're either, forged by it or they perish.
Right. For sure.
3 tips. 3 tips to be forged by it as opposed to never seeing them again. 3 tips.
Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, you're always going to have a shitstorm come up. You're always going to have the fire. The fire will come. So understanding what your why is what's going to get you through that. Otherwise, you'll wilt. So
go deeper.
Yeah.
Your why meaning?
Why you do what you do. So for me, I never started Groove Cruise and Whet Travel to make money. It was always about like changing people's lives, connecting people, relationships, making the world a better place, all that stuff. So Zig Ziglar quote, he said, if you help enough other people get what they want, you in turn will get what you want. So that was always my focus, is helping other people.
How many countries you been to?
67.
Countries.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
141 cruises next week.
I'd say you got a bunch of what you want by helping other people get what they want. Hell yeah. Second tip. So first tip is be very clear on why you're doing what you do and never lose sight of that, because if you lose sight of that, you're done. Second tip, to get through the fire.
Yeah, I think the emotional part is challenging, and just being grateful. It's just so hard when you're in the fire, but being grateful is probably the hardest thing to do when you're in the fire, but that will help you get through the emotional side of it, because there's always people in way worse situations than you're in. And
take that practical. You actually gave a very practical tip, which is get around children that you love. Well, ones that you like.
Right. Exactly, because I don't like
children you like. Were you literally making like lists mentally or in a journal, like 10 things I'm grateful for? Was it that specific, or you just kept reminding yourself, stay in gratitude? Give me a practical a nugget on that.
Yeah, when I was in Bali, I went to this, it wasn't a workshop, it was called the Joy Shop. I love that. Joy Shop. My friend Nitya, and he's from India, and he basically said, I forgot exactly, and I'm not going to tell this correctly, but he said to do a lotus flower. So think of 10 things, there's 10 leaves on the lotus flower each day, and this will take you a minute, if that. think of 10 things real quick that you're grateful. I do it in the shower.
Super
I like to maximize my time. Yeah. So I'll be in the shower. At the end of the shower, I turn it to cold. I think of 10 things that I'm grateful for every day.
The faster you think about it, the less cold water you got to feel.
Right. Exactly.
Super practical.
Exactly.
I love it. One more tip to get through the fire. 1, stay in gratitude. 2, know your why. So number 1, know your why, be clear on it, keep it focused. 2, stay in gratitude. And 3,
stay focused on the end goal. So kind of starting with the vision of like where you're going, or like starting with the end in mind, and just knowing that you're being pulled, and just knowing that the fire clears the forest and allows everything else to grow.
The new.
It's the new. It's
foliage.
The new. So when the fire is burning and you're getting burned, like just understand that that's for a reason. You have to burn the forest so that it can grow anew, and that's if you don't have like those negative things, you're never going to appreciate the good times either.
Nice.
Yeah.
So practicality, 3 major takeaways. How do you get through the fire? Number 1, know your why, be clear on it, stay focused on it. 2, stay in gratitude. 3, keep the end game very crystal clear. It's actually a really good transition, because right now, over the last 6 weeks, we've been beating up my core philosophy, of that first philosophy of teaching people success or results or whatever, which is the art of desire. And the first aspect of that is dreams and goals, right? I think everyone who's successful has dreams and goals. How specific do you take, let's say goal creation? Are they written? Is it visual? Is it yearly? Or is it just kind of something that floats? You have ideas that float around your head, and you're like, oh, there's things I want to do, and those are just floating there. How specific are you with it?
Yeah, so not extremely. I am specific, actually. So I do have like yearly goals, quarterly goals, and I do have long-term goals as well that I do have exercise that I go through every so often.
That's specific.
So yeah, I would say that's more specific than general. But yeah, just kind of thinking about like a vision plan. And what I had with my entrepreneur group when we did a visioning exercise, one thing that we did is we wrote our eulogy.
Yeah.
Wrote our eulogy.
Yeah.
So you basically write for each role that you have in your life, or that you're going to have in your life. So as a son, as a father, as an uncle, as
CEO.
CEO. So those roles, and then you basically write as if that person who reported to you, or you reported to, or your spouse, or whatever it is, was talking at your death.
Right.
And what do you want them to say about you when you die? And that shit's crazy.
That's intense.
Yeah, you write that down, and then you kind of take that and back it into like a 10-year goal, which is stretch. Like those are stretch big things. You take that eulogy back into 10 years, and then back into like 3 years, 1 year, and then quarterly. And so yeah, I've done that a couple times.
Nice. Habits. So for me, it's goals plus habits. What's your belief system on around daily habits?
I'm not real great at daily habits. I'm not very like structured. I'd say that's one of my challenges that I have. You can ask my girlfriend that as well. I'm very if it works, I want to break it. And it's just this weird thing that I have. I don't know if it's my creative side or whatever, but I'm not real consistent. My team can tell you I'm not real consistent, like on calls. You know this. No,
you have a habit of inconsistency.
I'm not always on time for shit. I don't know why. I need to get that out of my identity. So the habits I'm not great at. That's something I definitely have to work on for sure.
Well,
I do know I have good habits within me that I've.
Here's a point of feedback that may or may not have some accuracy for you, which is maybe you're looking at the habits of what people are criticizing you for, but I bet you there's a habit pattern that's really fucking amazing for you, that's creating positive results. I have a habit of creativity.
For sure.
I have a habit of, so not necessarily the rigid ones. Tell me, how important are the habits that are getting you your results that you do them daily? Is it meditation? Is it exercise, or is it, we never do it every day, we try to. Right. Is it gratitude? Is it checking in with your leadership? Like what are the few things that you're like, I've got a habit of doing these few things that I know if I do these, I'm going to get the outcomes I want?
Yeah. I definitely have a habit of staying positive and having the glass half full and optimistic, and keeping that, especially during the last 2 years, has been really challenging to just keep that positive habit, I guess you could say.
Take that a layer deeper, because the habit, that's the result. You're always a super positive, optimistic individual. What are you doing daily that keeps you in that space?
Yeah. I will meditate. Yeah, I will meditate. I will gratitude as well each day for sure. And
music, environments.
Yeah. I listen to music every day for sure. Yeah.
Like some people will sit there and listen to breakup songs all day long.
I'll listen to positive music actually. I have a whole playlist of positive music for sure. Positive music that gets me fired up. And then also books. I will read books, and not as many books as I would like, but...
You have a new podcast that you're going to listen to?
Podcasts. I do actually listen to podcasts. Blinkist I've been getting into lately a lot as well. Okay. And I think always learning, and that's always one of my goals, is to read, X amount of books each month and stuff like that.
Beautiful. Do you do anything with... you reference it as meditation. I'm going to go visualization, which to me, they may be the same, they may be different. To my understanding, pure meditation is like the absence of thought, the absence of outcome, I think. And visualization is intentionally thinking about the outcome. Right?
Yeah.
What's your beliefs around the topic of visualization?
I'd say it's more, what I would do is more visualization than meditation. And that does make sense. I've done meditation too, where you're just kind of in this void of not thinking, and that's difficult for me, for sure. But the visualization, I do like that. I'll do that sometimes in the morning where I'll listen to something, and then I'll just visualize my day or whatever it is.
So you do daily? How far out will you take it? Will you do like, this is the shit I want in my life, or this is what I want to see happen this year? So for example, for me, it's a very specific pattern. I have a gratitude visualization, which I usually will do at sunset or at night before I go to bed. And I have a dream and goal-based visualization. I'll start at the end and work backwards. Dreams, and I'm walking myself through no timeline. Just, you're doing this, and you're seeing this, and you're feeling this, and you're becoming this, and then I work backwards like this year you have, right? And those are very specific visualizations. What's kind of the process for you? Or is there one?
Yeah, there isn't really. There isn't really one. When I do the dreams, or visioning for the next 10 years and stuff, I will kind of step into that and try to feel it. But other than that, I don't have a daily or even monthly practice versus just going back and reading what I wrote down and did I get it or did I not, and so forth like that. So I wouldn't say it's as ingrained as I would like it to be, I guess you could say. Yeah. Well, or just putting it on my phone. I know there's other things that I certainly could do to connect deeper.
Sure. Well, I mean, the sweep of things that I heard was positive music that makes you happy, books, podcasts in alignment with your beliefs and values, gratitude, and that came out throughout your whole conversation, right? So if I could pick one thing that's been consistent in your whole conversation, it's gone back to your anchor's gratitude, right? So you're constantly putting yourself back into a place of gratitude, or you always are in a place of gratitude. And when you're not, you're self-aware to put yourself back in a place of gratitude. Question: how important is self-awareness to success?
Very important. So otherwise you're gonna piss off a lot of people around you. So I'm not always the most self-aware person, and sometimes I'm just not as aware of my environment and how other people are feeling, and I need to be more empathetic and things like that. So there's definitely more work that I need to do in the self-awareness.
Well, I think that's awareness of environment, which is different than self-awareness. I think you're great at putting yourself in check or knowing when you, self-awareness is you, and then, awareness of others is a different function altogether. I think you're super self-aware.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, nice. Okay, so let's kind of round this out. We got, I think, three questions from people that have come in through social. So I'm gonna go to my phone here to pull these up. We've got, we'll start with Isabella from Lisbon, Portugal.
Nice.
What are strategies to combat limiting belief systems?
Ooh,
Isabella from Portugal.
That's a deep one.
Strategies to combat limiting belief systems.
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to be conscious that you have a limiting belief.
Self-aware.
Self-aware. So for me, I thought I had like a fear of failure.
Yeah.
I thought I had that for a long time. And after I dug deeper and did some inner work, and this was at a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny seminar, was that I realized that I had a fear of success. And I'm like, why the hell would I have a limiting belief of a fear of success? That doesn't make any sense. Where did this come from? So it came from like, when I was a kid, I don't know where this exactly came from, but I always thought that people with money stepped on other people, that business owners were assholes, that money doesn't grow on
trees,
and that money is the root of all
evil.
And so all that shit. So I had this whole vision of like,
did we grow up in the same hometown?
Yeah.
Oh wait, we did grow up in the same hometown. Oh, yeah, we did.
So I had this whole thing of money, and people with money are just evil.
Yeah.
Like, and money is evil, and people are evil. And I just had this mental.
Well, our hometown was ran by big corp, right? It was like everybody worked for the factory.
Everybody worked for the factory and the school system or whatever it was, and it was just very, that's just what we knew, and that was the system. So to get out of that system and understand like that these aren't true, and just understand like, where does the limiting belief come from, number one? Is it true, number two? Because I can probably guarantee you it's not. Whatever your limiting belief came from a coach or a parent or a teacher or an uncle or
media.
Just a media or a situation that you were in. So where did that limiting belief come from? Because then you can deal with it. Then you're self-aware and you're like, oh, well, it came because of my parents told me when I was a kid that all men can't be trusted.
Yep.
And I have a limiting belief that all men can't be trusted.
My single mother or my single grandmother taught me, good.
You can't get divorced because of this, or whatever your limiting belief is, or I am not enough. That's probably the biggest one. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. So where does that come from? And it comes really deep into your subconscious, and how do you kind of figure that out? So become self-aware and figure it out first, and then think about where it came from, and then is it true or not? Because then you got to change that story from back in your childhood. And just work on that, and that might take a coach or somebody to help you through that, or a mentor or something like that, or maybe it's just you just realize it and become aware like I did. I'm like, well, I don't have fear of success. That's ridiculous.
This is literally the lesson we're on this week, which is raise the bar, beliefs determine your actions, actions determine results, and the week after, which is next week, which people will probably have already seen that content by now. It talks about, your beliefs come from your beliefs are files in a filing cabinet, right? So each file is a belief. And all of those files are filled with references from what you took in from your senses since you were a child, filling up with millions of references into these millions of files, aka beliefs. And that all comes from your filter, aka your bodyguard, the bouncer at the door. The bouncer at the door, and the bouncer only lets in who he recognizes from the past, right? So, I got to be self-aware enough that I've got to dial in my filter. I got to retrain my filter to allow in new references, because my filter's blocking out all the references of men are great. So I can only see men are evil, or men are bad, or opportunity is risky, or money's the root of all evil, or whatever, because our bouncer at the door blocks out 99% of all the people that can come in. And that's our RAS, our reticular activating system. So, great advice. Question number two. Question number two is from Austin, from Phoenix. How does someone tap into their true potential?
I was at South by Southwest the last couple days, and I've always thought about finding your passion, right? Finding your passion. And I thought it was interesting how a lot of people haven't been able to find their passion. What the hell is your passion? And Yeah, Mark Cuban was actually speaking and he brought this up and he said, it's not about finding your passion so much, it's about figuring out what you're curious about and then going after it, because the ideas and the passion doesn't come from just blah, blah. It comes from action and doing things and moving and ready, fire, aim, not ready, aim, fire, and just action, action, action.
Good.
And the idea will actually come in the process. And I thought that was really mind-opening to me, was that passion is really just curiosity. And to figure out, what are you curious about? I'm curious about video games, or I'm curious about, clothing.
And you're either going to quit or you're really going to double down, right?
Yeah, so either, I'm curious about these 10 things, and it's like, all right, well, maybe I can go down this road and work in this industry and figure it out and start a business, or not.
Yeah.
Or maybe work yourself up. But when you're in a industry that you're passionate about, or a field that you're passionate about or curious about, then you're just so much more aligned with your being and like who you are at your core, and yeah.
Now, I would say, Austin, from a true potential perspective, it would start with not comparing yourself to anyone else, not comparing yourself to their results, because that's someone else's true potential. That's not your true potential, right? And then piggybacking on purpose and passion, I was on a plane to Vegas last week and I drew this, I haven't released this to anybody, I drew a Venn diagram for my purpose. And it's okay, I know what my purpose is. How do I stay in my purpose, right? And I was like, all right, impact. When I'm impacting people, I'm in my purpose. When there's a residual impact, when it goes from person to person, just fucking impact. 2 is joy. Because I've done a lot of stuff that made major impact, but I wasn't happy doing it, right? So impact and joy. And the third one for me is revenue or income, right? So I know I'm at my best when I'm playing for something big for impact, income/revenue, but I also am happy doing it, right? So that's how I stay in my purpose. I don't know if that's useful for anybody out there. Question number 3.
Well, hold on. There was something you said about potential. So like, what the heck is potential? So like, you're talking about like reaching your potential. So how do you know when you reach your potential?
Maybe you never do.
Maybe you never do. Or how do you know when you're there? So it's like, well, I want to be successful. It's like, well, what the heck is successful? Success is different to every person, and potential is different to every person. So understanding to love the process of going towards your potential and taking the action towards that, I think is as important or more important than just like reaching your potential. Because how do you know when you reach the potential? And who cares if you reach your potential if you're miserable the whole time leading up, like you just said?
One of my early mentors said there is no finish line.
No, there's no finish line.
There's no finish line, right? So you'll never max your potential if there's no finish line. Brandon from Weston, Florida. Is there a hero in your family that became a driving force for you over the years to go kick ass?
Besides my parents, who are obviously my heroes. So I had my two most influential people in my life were my 2 great uncles. Okay. And one was 92. He was a practicing physician until he was 92 years old. And I was originally going to take the MCAT to go to medical school when I was in college. And he didn't tell me not to go into medicine, but he said, Jason, could you imagine having a patient who needs a certain drug or a certain procedure and you can't give it to them because their insurance company won't accept it? And I'm like, and this was 20 plus years ago. I was like, that would suck.
Yeah.
And then I job shadowed a surgeon in an open heart surgery, and I asked him after the surgery, he was signing papers, and I said, what are you doing? He said, this is how we get paid. And I said, well, how much do you get paid? And he goes, I make middle 6 figures a year. And I said, all right, well, if you were to do it all over again, it's like 8 years of medical school and 4 years of specialty school.
All the debt?
And God knows how much debt. Would you do it all over again? And he said, I don't know. He's like, I'm on call all the time. I can get paged at any time to go to the hospital. I'll be at my daughter's dance recital. I'll be at dinner with my wife and I got to leave. And he's like, I have all the cars and I have all the things and houses and all that. And I said, well, what would you do if you were to do it all over again? And he goes, I'd get into medical insurance. He goes, that's where all the money is. And I was just like, ding, 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 like, F this industry, out. was like, and I wanted to be a doctor since I was a kid.
2 doctors that quoted insurance, by the way.
Yes, and I wanted to be a doctor since I was a kid. So that was like a turning point in my life. Was my great uncle, and then my other great uncle was a entrepreneur, and he was the happiest person I had ever met. And I went to school in Australia for a semester. I came back and I was in the basement of his house, and he had this map with all these pins on it, and each pin was correlated to a photo album. So I'd say, show me Argentina, show me like whatever, Thailand.
Before this was digital, you went to the bookcase, you pulled out
and it was like, photo albums, pins and photo albums. And I was like, man, this guy, he makes more money than a doctor makes. He affects more people than a doctor makes, and he's happier. And I'm like, well, why do I want to be a doctor? I want to be a doctor because I want to help people, and I want to make a lot of money, and I want to change people, make the world a better place. Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, well, I can be an entrepreneur and do all that and be happier and be better and not have insurance.
And so far, you've taken how many people on the cruise of their lifetime, or the experience of their lifetime?
Yeah, over 50,000.
50,000. How much top line revenue? Tens of millions.
That's a good question. That's a a question.
Tens of millions. If I just do
no,
tens of millions.
Yeah, it's over 50 million for
Fuck
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to round out the show. So that was our first show. I think it went good. You think it went good? Oh, you were awesome. That was our first show. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Where can everybody find you, Jason, or where can they go right now, buy a ticket for their next Groove Cruise if it's not sold out? Or if you prefer, donate to your nonprofit, what can they do?
Sure. So @TravelJason is pretty much my handles on all the handles. groovecruise.com and whetfoundation.com. So it's WHET foundation.org. Sorry.
Well, we're going to do this every week, not to somebody who's doing well. Because the people that are just doing well, they don't know nothing yet. I want people that have done well, got their ass kicked, and then have recovered and made it through the fire. They've been forged by it. And we're gonna have a series. I've already got 2 months worth of amazing guests lined up. Stay here, stay on, stay plugged in. Here's some social handles that you can find us at and get connected with. And this Forged by Fire is brought to you by thenextgen.org. My foundation, we teach youth the topic of entrepreneurship. If you got any value here, go there, thenextgen.org. Donate $20, $50, whatever, and we're going to keep teaching youth entrepreneurship. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Jason. Thanks you guys. Appreciate it.